Welcome to step number 2 of the lace closure sew-in tutorial. In this step, I will be teaching you step by step how to prepare your braiding pattern as well as how to sew on your weaving net. So now I've just braided down my braid pattern, and to show you how you want to do it, you have to first determine where you want your actual part to be. You can have it either to the left side or the right side or the middle. Me, I prefer to have my part in the middle. You want to part as far back as the length of your closure. So you can put your closure against your head to measure and see how far back you need to go. After you do that, you have to start braiding your braids away from your part. So when you part your closure and lay your hair down for styling, you will actually see your scalp through the closure to help it blend very easily. So when you begin, you have to braid a braid that goes on both sides away from your part. Now, for me, I like to put out a little bit of leave out because I have a smaller forehead. Now, if you have a wider forehead, it would look just as great if you don't leave out any hairs, but you want to make sure that if you do, that you part a very small amount of hair just in the front so it can cover the closure, and then let 2 braids hang loose so you know that's the hair that will be your leave out. So now after that, you want to braid starting with your 2 braids after that to go all the way to the sides of your head. So as you can see, I braided all the way to the side, and then if I turn around, you will notice that I also brought the braid all the way to the back. Now you want to make sure to go all the way to the back because when you sew down your weaving net, it will actually help to lay down your weaving net very flat at the nape of your head. So once again, you're going to have leave out a small area of hair here in the front. If not, you're going to braid that braid all the way down. Since I have leave out, I have 2 braids hanging down here. Now after that, you want to braid 2 braids going to the side. And remember, this braid is going all the way around to the nape of the neck as well as the other braid as well. So as you can see, the other braid here goes all the way around the nape. After that, you're going to start braiding your braids all the way to the back, away from the part of your closure, and then you're going to connect 1 braid to another. So I probably have anywhere from 10 to about 14 braids total. And as you can see, I have about 6 braids left down here. That's because every 2 braids that you braid on your scalp, you want to connect it at the end. So now that I've shown you how to actually braid your hair down, you then want to go ahead and begin sewing each braid down to your head so that you can actually sew on your weaving net. So now here we are at the moment where you have to sew down the loose ends of your braid to your head to complete your braid pattern. So remember, when you braided your braids going to the back, you want to make sure to join 2 braids at a time so that way you can have anywhere from about 5 to 8 braids at the back, depending on how small or big your braids actually are. So now at this moment, what you want to do, I will be showing you, for example, how to braid down the braid here on the edge of my head. You're going to repeat the same process over the rest of your braids as well. So what you will be doing is you will lift your braid going upwards and you will tuck it into an available space on your braid pattern. Then after that, you want to begin sewing all the way up. And then when you reach this loose end, you can simply leave it loose because you don't have to sew it down. You just want to sew down the bulk of your braid so that way it's very easy for you to sew down your weaving net so that you can have a very flat install. But if you want to, you can fold the small tail end back over and sew it down, but it's unnecessary. So now that you know the process, you want to make sure to go ahead and prepare your weaving needles and your thread, and then you want to begin sewing down your braids to complete your braid pattern. So now with my needle and thread in my right hand, I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to fold my braid down in between the space of my braid pattern, and then I'm going to begin stitching so that it's very flat. Start at the base, take your needle, put it into a neighboring braid, and then put it through the base of your folded braid. And then once you pull it through, you want to create a knot. Now once you've created your knot, you're going to continue working up your braid to finish stitching it down. So make sure it's laying very flat in between two braids. Take your needle and thread, put it through the neighboring braid, and then put it through the braid that you folded over. Once you do that, grab your thread, wrap the thread around the needle once, twice, and pull the needle straight through. So now we've created our second knot. So continue repeating this process all the way up. Go through a neighboring braid and the braid you folded down. Pull the needle out, wrap some string around once, twice, and then pull through. Make sure to keep sewing up as far as you can so that way your braid can be very flat. Naturally, all braids taper slightly at the end as they become a little thinner. You don't have to fold that back down and sew it to your braid, but you can if you want to. It's perfectly optional. So now after you've secured your last knot, you want to open up the thread and pull it to slightly tighten the last knot you created. After that, you're going to cut the string above the knot, and then you finish stitching down your braid. When you put on your weaving net, this piece here, this very small piece, will lay down very flatly as you sew on your weaving net, so you don't have to sew it down, as stated again. So just cut the thread off from your last knot, and then continue the rest of the process until all of your braids have been sewn down. So once you finish your braid pattern and you've sewn the remaining braids down, this is how your braid pattern should look right before sewing on your weaving net. So now that your braiding pattern is complete, I will be showing you step by step how to sew your weaving net onto your braids. So now this is the moment where you will begin sewing your weaving net down to your braid pattern base. So just to make sure you don't actually sew your perimeter braid, you want to make sure you locate where they are. They're my first two braids here, so I know that when I begin sewing, I have to skip a braid over to sew. For now, I'm going to tuck these perimeter braids here behind my ears and begin sewing down the weaving net. Now the way you lay your weaving net on your braid pattern will depend on your preference, or it really doesn't matter, because you can lay it down the short way or you can lay it down the long way. Me, I usually lay it down the short way, so I will show you exactly how to do so. So when you're laying it down the short way, long net will hang behind your head and you're going to apply the net right where you have to sew it down on your base. Now, some individuals like to use bobby pins to stop it from shifting, but you don't necessarily have to. You can just place your hand where you want it to be and begin stitching. To make sure that it's stitched right against your part where you will be showing the lace closure part, you want to make sure that you actually stitch around the braids as close as you can to where your visible scalp is seen. After you stitch each braid, you're going to go all the way around, and then after that you're going to trim off the piece of net that's here in the middle, so that way this whole area is complete. After that, you then go around and do the same thing over your entire head to sew down the net, only on the perimeter braid at that point. So to begin, grab the short end, lay it exactly over the braids where you want to stitch, and begin stitching. I'm going to stitch on the right side here, and you want to always form your knots at the very beginning of each cornrow braid. So you go through your net, go under your braid, and then go back out through the net. Pull the needle out, and then you're going to wrap the needle around your string twice and then pull through to create a knot. So there's your first knot, and for extra security you can do the same thing once again. Go through the string once and then twice and then pull straight through. Now that we have the first stitch secure, go ahead and repeat the same process on each braid. So we're going to go directly to the next braid. Go through the net, under the cornrow, right at the beginning. Pull through. Go through the string once, twice, and then pull through to create your knot. Work your way all the way around your braids that's going away from your part. So now that I've shown you the second one, you're going to go to the third one. Then you're going to go all the way around to complete this top portion. Cut the lace off and then finish stitching around your braids that go around the perimeter of your head. As you can see, I started my first stitch here on the right side of my head at the perimeter braid, and I went all the way around the part where I want my lace to show, and then I ended my last stitch here. Now, before you actually cut the remaining net in the middle, make sure you sew just a few stitches in front so that way you don't cut off too much net. So now take your scissors and carefully remove the net that's in the middle where your lace closure part will be shown. After you finish trimming your netting in the middle, make sure to clean up any small pieces that are around the surrounding braids, and then finish sewing down the net across all of your braid pattern just by following your perimeter braid and going all the way around your head. After you finish stitching, trim off the rest of the lace, and then your braid pattern with your net will be complete. After sewing my weaving net to my braids, this is the completed look of my braid pattern base after trimming off the excess netting. And that wraps up step number 2 of the lace closure sew-in tutorial. In the very next step, step number 3, I will be teaching you step by step how to sew on your Mrs. Rutter's hair extensions for your look.